Welcome back for another long-awaited video. So we are entered into the little LeMans race, which will be the Centenary 100-year anniversary with the Jaguar again, which we took last year. But I do have a collection of bits to make one of these, so I'm going to try and do this so we can take this, because this was racing this Sigma MC73. This was racing in 1973, so it's also the 50-year anniversary of this. It's bizarre that it's got a Mazda engine and it's sponsored by Toyota as well. But anyway, so I have an F1 go-kart. So this has, you may have seen these videos already for some of this stuff. Front ventilated discs, which are quite a long way from the pivot point, which means there's quite a big arc, so I might have to do something about that when the wheel turns. Obviously it's got a rear vented disc as well. Quite a wide 2-inch axle, big anyway, bit rusty, needs a bit of cleaning up, but it's got some useful bits. Obviously the pedals and everything are there. It's got a gear shift, it's got a clutch lever, and to make it like this I need to add some bigger wheels, I need to lengthen the chassis, I need to widen the chassis, I need to make it for 2 people. So I've got some second-hand quad wheels, 10x8s and 8x8s, size there, and some tyres. I've got fronts would be 18 by 950, so that's 18-inch diameter, 9.5 inches wide, and some 20 by 10s, so 20-inch diameter, 10 inches wide for the rear, which are those. I have a useful, about the right width, rolling road panel. So from the front there, that line, to these bits of tape is about the right width, length, and the plate is about the right width, which should just fit in the transit van. But I need to add about 16 inches, I think, to this wheel centre, so to increase the wheelbase. So I'm going to have to cut these tubes probably across there where they're nice and straight, add sections in to make it longer, but also I need to move the steering over a little bit so that it can be a 2-seater. Actually looks like it's not very straight at the moment. I hadn't noticed that before. Anyway, so because it's got a spherical joint at the bottom, I can probably just move it over a bit. I'm going to need to make the wheel, width wider, lose a bit of camber on these upright mountings, because it's going to be crazy heavy steering by the time I get big wheels on it. It's not so bad with smaller wheels, but just by the fact that they have so much camber change with the angle of the kingpin, I'm gonna have to look at that and try and get the wheel as far over as possible, even if I can try and get it over that caliper. But it's quite bulky, caliper just has a single cylinder, and it just sort of levers out. Don't know if you can see that. So, and it's got a fuel tank, it's got some useful bits, but yeah, not all of it is useful. So that is the plan. And then obviously the engine, which you may have seen, these are discs that I've got of Ali, because I'm going to need to weld in, need to check these wheels run true because they're second hand and they've got a few dents on them, but I need to make adapters up for the centre of the wheel to take it to the 3-bolt hubs that are on the cart already, because I might as well reuse those. So the engine is a Sachs. Not much of the Sachs writing there. Well, actually, it's made under license. I found out a bit more about the engine. The engine I bought new on eBay, and it was for the power supply for a Cyberline radar for the Ministry of Defence. So it's a rotary engine. It's a KM48 Sachs design that was made under license by Norton Motorcycles. So the engine hasn't actually had any use. In a previous video, I took it apart and I ported the rotor housing. It's a Bridgeport engine. I think it should be 8 horsepower standard, and I'm hoping it's sort of 10 or a bit more. Gone quite a bit bigger on the ports. They were tiny to start with. And then because this doesn't have a pull start, I've got this quad bike transmission, which also I talked about in a previous video, which has an electric start, and I need to make a adapter flange up from these 3 bolts. This is the clutch for the starter. These 3 bolts here, flat flange, straight shaft, to 3 pins that go into this rubber coupling, and that will get me electric start, semi-auto gearbox with reverse. I need to cap off where the barrel went on there and block off the oil supply, which is that tiny little hole there. I replaced the crank with a straight shaft. If you can see that. So it's fairly light. I think this is about 15 kilos. This is probably about 10. So it should have enough room at the back when the chassis is extended to get all that in. That is the plan. So I suppose first up, I need to get the wheels checked for roundness, straightness, and see what I'm going to need to do to adapt them to fit on the cart hubs. So the wheel detail is, you can see that's like a 5-spoke. Might better just get away with painting them black. I could add some 5-spoke detail, a bit like I did on the Porsche, which would be quite easy to do. But first up, this is the front. This is an 8x8 made by DID in Japan. It's a quad bike rim, and it's a little bit wobbly, but I think it'll probably be alright. I might better tweak it a little bit. It seems like it's running pretty straight from the centre where it's welded, and then yeah, it's had a bit of a bash on the outside, but it's pretty straight. I'll just get a rear in there. Just got to check the other front. It's slightly worse. I think I'm probably going to have to do a bit of tweaking on those, which might involve using a press. Let's get a rear on there, see how they run. It's one of the advantages of having a big lathe. That rear looks pretty good. Bit of run out, and it looks pretty straight. This one is quite a bit out. Looks like a couple of mil. These 10-inch ones are actually flow formed. Can't remember what they call it now. Spun on a lathe. So the barrel is one piece, and then the centre has been welded in. You can see it at the back, and it's also got this reinforcing ring around it. but yeah, I think I can probably true them up. Because I'm putting a new centre in there, I can probably put that in the lathe, clock the outside of the rim, and just machine the centre to suit where I want it to be, so I can get it to run true. I don't know how easy they would be to kind of press out if they've got a slight buckle in them without damaging them too much. So let's get the wheels off the cart and see what I need to do with the centres on these to make them bolt on.